So happy International Women's Day to everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Cassandra Petrella. I am the I Love Me campaign president. And today we have Danielle Robert joining us today, and she will be talking about choosing to challenge our self-worth. And so I will be your moderator today. I am reaching you from Ottawa, Ontario. I'm at Senta Counseling Services in my clinic office where I provide mental health treatment to teen girls, adult women, couples, and families. And so we'll tell you a little bit about our campaign to get started. And so our campaign was founded 5 years ago, and our real mission was to provide free mental health education to teen girls and young adult women. And so we're very excited today because we're actually celebrating our 5-year anniversary because our campaign was founded 5 years ago on Women's Day. And so we have had the incredible opportunity to help thousands of girls, and we've reached hundreds and thousands of girls across Canada to provide mental health education on campus, in schools, and in community settings. We've got incredible core teams in Ottawa and St. John's, Newfoundland, and we have had so many people in the community, whether they be teachers, educators, psychotherapists, family members of our volunteers, university students, college students, high school teens and students. We've had so many people come together throughout the years to really support our mission to provide mental health education to the community. And we've had so many incredible people who have fundraised with us so that we can do all of this free of cost to participants. And so a couple things just to kind of cover today. As I had mentioned earlier, we are recording. And so if you have any concerns for yourself in terms of being online and being recorded or that sort of thing in terms of safety, feel free to change your name in the chat to an alias. We've set that option available, and just ensure to keep your video and recording options and mute options off as we are recording. And so we've got an amazing day today, starting with Danielle. So we've got events planned all across Canada, from Newfoundland to Quebec to Ontario. We also have some things happening as well in Manitoba later this week. And so we're really excited to be reaching so many people. And, you know, usually a big part of what we do is in person through connection with people. And so something that was challenging for us this year was to figure out, well, how do we connect during this pandemic if we can't actually reach people? And so that for us was a challenge, but we've kind of got all set up. And one of the beautiful silver linings of all of this is we're actually talking and connecting today with people, women of all walks of life from across Canada. So that's also something that we're really excited about today, is getting to kind of expand our Women's Day celebration from what we typically do locally. We also want to make a note to say that today is a safe and inclusive space. So everybody is welcome here today. We are a group of professionals and volunteers that have a significant background in providing mental health treatment and support to young girls, teen women, and women. And so that really is the primary focus of the work that we do. And that is going to be the thread of what we're talking about today. But we also want to say that boys and men's mental health is equally important. And boys and men need to be a part of the conversation, especially as we talk about change this Women's Day. And so everyone is included here today and welcome. And just keeping in mind, though, that our talk does primarily focus on women's mental health. And we also want to take a moment to acknowledge the Indigenous land that this talk is participating on, and as well as where you are participating from, to acknowledge that the Indigenous people were on this land before many of us arrived or our families arrived, and we are here in peace and togetherness. And so today's talk with Danielle is going to be about challenging your self-worth. And so this has always been really fundamental to our campaign, because we truly believe that self-worth and self-love is the foundation for mental wellness. And that's why we teach what we teach. It's really about teaching people that when we take care of what's inside and we feel good about ourselves, we can then move forward in life to face challenges and to really step up to the plate when we talk about making changes in our world for women. And so that's why we've asked Danielle to talk about something that's really core to what we do, in learning about how do we sort of understand self-love and self-worth, and how do we create change and improvement in our own life from that premise. And so before Danielle begins, I'll just give her a brief introduction with a biography. So Danielle Robert is a registered psychotherapist with the College of Registered Psychotherapists of Ontario. She holds a Master's of Arts degree in counseling and spirituality and an undergraduate degree in psychology and neuroscience. Danielle has 3 years of psychotherapy experience working in a variety of settings, including clinics, hospitals, and community health agencies. Danielle started her own private practice, Pause and Reframe Psychotherapy, where she works with individual clients who face challenges with anger, anxiety, depression, attachment, loss, grief, trauma, and concurrent disorders. Danielle is an advocate for women's mental health and well-being. And so at this stage, I'm going to turn the presentation over to see what Danielle has in store for us. And then we're going to be leaving the last 15, 20 minutes to do a Q&A. So you're welcome to ask questions and engage with Danielle throughout the talk, and I'll be moderating. And then we also will have a question and answer period specifically at about 11:40 or so. So Danielle, I'll leave it to you and I'll let you share your screen and start your presentation for the day.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm just trying to get started. Thank you all for joining me. My name is Danielle Robert, and thank you so much for introducing me, Cassandra. So I'm going to share my presentation with you all. Okay, so there we go. So today we are going to be talking about choosing to challenge our self-worth. Oh, there we go. So why does self-worth matter? Self-worth is the foundation for mental health and wellness. If we don't love ourselves, we can't choose to challenge greater issues and stand up for each other as women with confidence. So today we're going to be talking about self-esteem, self-confidence, vulnerability, self-love, and self-worth. So I just wanted to start by saying this will be an interactive presentation, and we can use the chat feature if you feel comfortable sharing. So with that, what does self-esteem mean to you? When you hear the word self-esteem, what comes to mind? I'll give everyone a few minutes to think about it or share. I'm seeing perspective, worldview, holding yourself in high regard, feeling proud of myself, self-love, believing in your worth. All of these are also wonderful. So to go into a little bit more detail, self-esteem is what we think, feel, and believe about ourselves. Factors that influence our self-esteem may include genetics, personality, age, health, thoughts, social circumstances, the reaction of others, and comparing the self to others. Characteristics of people with high self-esteem vary. For example, people with high self-esteem may have peace within themselves, enjoy meaningful interpersonal relationships, tolerate frustrations well, and seek continuous self-improvement. Reflecting on this, anything else come to mind? When we think about self-esteem and having high self-esteem, what does that mean to everyone? Again, you can use the chat feature. While we think on high self-esteem, I'll just go over low self-esteem a little bit. So low self-esteem may look like being non-assertive, indecisive, lack self-acceptance, and feel unlovable. It's important to recognize where we are in terms of our self-esteem to know where the work needs to be. So ways to improve our self-esteem, recognizing our own good qualities. So being kind to yourself, accepting that we have areas to strive and grow in. Nobody's perfect. Striving for perfection is not attainable because everybody has their own subjective definition for what perfect means. Everyone makes mistakes. We learn from every mistake we make. We can create our self-esteem. Focus on what you can change. Right now, we're going to take a moment. If you can grab a pen and paper or write on your notes in your phone, I want us to take a moment and grab a pen and paper. I want us to think about one thing that you're not happy with. And then I want you to think of 3 ways you can change it. If you feel comfortable sharing, again, please use the chat feature. And for example, for myself, sometimes I am too quick to react. I can change this by pausing, taking a breath, and listening deeper to the other person involved. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share? If they feel comfortable, I'll give a few moments. And if you don't feel comfortable sharing, that's okay as well. As I'm waiting, I'll continue on. So this change will not happen overnight, and it takes practice and an investment of time into yourself. Ooh, so accepting failures as learning, rather than just allowing the failures to kind of flow through. And yeah, I think that's beautiful. Does anyone else have any other things to add? How we can change one thing we aren't happy with ourselves? And moving into the practice part. With practice, it's also important to celebrate the small stuff. So celebrating small victories is a great way to build confidence and feel better about yourself. Okay, and going back to the exercise, having self-compassion and knowing you can't be perfect all the time. Good. Reacting in ways that cause awareness. If I can challenge you further, Jackie, reacting in ways that cause awareness. Can you think of anything that comes to mind when we react in ways that cause awareness? What would that look like? Another person said, not feeling guilty for prioritizing myself over others. Sometimes self-care is necessary. Ooh, misogyny and sexism specifically. Great answers, everybody. Thank you for sharing. So, moving into self-confidence. Self-confidence is trusting your own judgment and abilities. Self-confidence is valuing yourself and feeling worthy, regardless of any imperfections. Self-confidence doesn't mean stop caring about what other people think. Self-confidence means start caring about what you think. So how to work on our self-confidence? We are going to do another exercise. Like I said before, this is interactive. So if you feel comfortable, on paper or on phone, write a list of best traits you think you possess. Write at least 5 traits that make you a really wonderful, capable, and smart woman or male. I saw that there was one on here if they identify in that way. Please think of what makes you really wonderful, capable, and smart. And if you feel comfortable sharing, please use the chat. Sometimes it can be hard to think of if we don't have high self-confidence, what really does make us wonderful. And it could be really anything. If you are a good listener, if you're kind, caring, if you think of others, ooh, I am empathetic, wonderful. Any other ideas that come to mind? I'm resilient. Yes, wonderful. Does anyone else have any other suggestions? If not, I will continue. I'm open to being wrong at times and learning from it. Wonderful. The openness, that is honesty as well. Okay, now we will move into vulnerability. So I have a quote by Brené Brown. Vulnerability is about showing up and being seen. It's tough to do that when we're terrified about what people might see or think. You can find Brené Brown's TED Talk on the power of vulnerability on YouTube. It's free. and it is to dig deeper into this thought. So, vulnerability is the driving force of connection. Vulnerability is openness to experiences, people, and uncertainty. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. So oftentimes when we show our vulnerability, it isn't met with acceptance and honor. It's usually met with judgment because we may tell someone that isn't willing to listen or cares. And if you show how you feel, we were told that you're weak. I'm here to tell you that that is old news. Vulnerability is the opposite. It isn't a weakness. Like I said, it's a strength. So it takes so much strength and courage to open up and offer the closest parts of ourselves to another person or people. As women, we can offer a space for other women to be vulnerable and try to change the narrative surrounding vulnerability. And I have another little reflection. So reflection, has there been a time in your life where you were being vulnerable and were judged for it? If you feel comfortable sharing this, what was that like for you? Makes you want to close yourself off even more. Absolutely. I know for myself, if I'm feeling vulnerable, I feel super small and I feel like not deserving of this conversation. It's hard to feel judged when you're being vulnerable. It's discouraging. Absolutely. Takes a good amount of awkwardness. Yeah, you kind of feel like you said something wrong, like it's not being well reciprocated, and it feels awkward because it's not the response that you were looking for when it takes so much strength to be able to offer that part of yourself. It makes me feel like my feelings weren't valid. Absolutely. All great reflections. And on the other side, has there been a time in your life where you allowed yourself to be vulnerable and it was accepted? How did this experience differ from feeling judged? It turned out better than I thought. Ooh, oh, so many answers. It turned out better than I thought because I got what I wanted out of the situation. Beautiful. I felt validated. It helped me grow. Makes you feel closer to the person you're disclosing something to. It honestly offers that strength of a bond where you feel like you can turn back to that person after. It makes you feel closer to the person. That's how I met my husband. Wonderful. And that is another great example of how vulnerability can be a strength because you met someone that, well, is now your husband and is important in your life. Great. So when vulnerability is met with negativity, it makes us want to put those imaginary walls back up because we don't feel safe. Upon reflecting, between these two experiences, it shows the importance of leaning in and honoring the vulnerability of others. We can honor vulnerability by being open and accepting while maintaining a non-judgmental stance. We can also thank the person for their vulnerability. If you thank someone, it kind of offers that I heard you, I see you, and I'm here for you. And thank you for sharing. And it leans into that strength and courage that it takes to share. So moving into self-love now. How you love yourself is how you teach others to love you. That's from Rupi Kaur. So, what does self-love mean to you? If you'd like to share ideas, now is the time. I'd like to hear, even if you don't currently partake in certain actions of self-love, what are some things that come to mind when you hear self-love? Being honest about what I need in any given situation. Yes. Very similar to self-esteem, being kind to yourself, putting yourself first at times, taking breaks when I get overwhelmed. practicing self-care activities on a daily basis, speaking up. These are all wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And I will tap into self-love a little more. So self-love could look like a state of appreciation for oneself. This appreciation grows from the actions that support our physical, psychological, emotional, and spiritual growth. Having a high regard for your own well-being and happiness, taking care of your own needs and not sacrificing your well-being to please others, not settling for less than you deserve. Ooh, trying new things, self-love, asking for help. Yes, so important. That's another topic too. Asking for help can also feel weak. And we as people aren't always meant to handle and take on everything. And usually when people work together, we find that there's proof that people do work better as colleagues working together, and they're able to build ideas off of each other. So asking for help when you are in the weeds, for lack of a better term, is a strength because you know when you need the help. And I know this is all said and done. Yes, we all know what self-love is and what it could look like, but I would like to talk about why it is so hard to love ourselves. So this was taken from Dr. Christina Hibbert. So our experiences do not match what we are told or shown in the world. Our parents or family often contribute to this misconception. They may, consciously or subconsciously, invoke a negative view of ourselves through years of criticism or withheld love. On the other hand, even if our parents were loving and self-taught and taught us self-worth, media, teachers, friends, and others can impact our sense of self-worth. Going into media a little bit further, because we are in a global pandemic and we are isolating, and usually the ways to communicate is through phones and technology and social media. Media, it affects our self-worth because it leads to comparison. Social media only shows the best parts of ourselves, best in quotations. It's a highlight reel. We only show what we think society is accepting of. We rarely show our more challenging days. And we compare ourselves to the supermodels and the influencers. It's easy to feel disappointed when engaging with social media if we look different than what is represented online. And honestly, most of us do. The normal, average, or typical body that you would see is not broadcasted all over social media. It's the ones who are skinny and they fit the mold, or they have curves, and it's very much a standard and a stigma rather than regular and normal body types. So that's really important to consider of why it's so hard to love ourselves. We're surrounded by this stuff so often if we choose to be. Moving into, we tend to pay more attention to negative experiences than positive ones. So in psychology, this is termed the negativity bias, meaning that we as humans are more likely to remember negatives in life rather than the positives. Lastly, we don't trust ourselves. We may receive many compliments from people who love and support us, but that may not change how we view ourselves because we're the voice that's with us 100% of the time. We are always with ourselves. And if those negative self-talk, which we will get into a little bit, if that negative self-talk is overpowering any compliment, we rarely hear what the other person is saying about us. So, how to practice self-love? Affirmations. So affirmations are statements that positively challenge our self-sabotage voice. I've added 20 self-love affirmations for a starting point. So I am loved, I am smart, I am wanted, I am enough, I am strong, I accept myself, and so on. By practicing these affirmations, our normal thinking patterns will begin to change. We can further challenge and change the way we think through negative self-talk. We need to challenge our normal kind of response that comes up when we do something wrong or if we make a mistake. So, for example, if the regular occurring thought is, I'm a bad person, the response could be, what is the evidence that proves that you are a bad person? The challenge will be, what is the evidence opposing this statement? That one can be tricky because it isn't the first thing that comes to our mind. The first thought is, I am a bad person. Keeping track of your accomplishments, get rid of what's holding you down. This could be people or things. Stop comparing yourself to others, whether the comparison focuses on, well, at least my life isn't as bad, or I wish I looked like that. Both comparisons take away from the reality that we experience. If we're saying, well, my life isn't as bad, we are actually minimizing how bad our lives are or what we are experiencing at that time. Whereas, oh, I wish I looked like that, that is the I should do something differently. I wish this could be different. And it's not in the present moment. So we are constantly worrying or ruminating about what we are comparing ourselves to. Self-worth. So the reason we're all here today, self-worth is the more global recognition that we are valuable human beings worthy of love. Self-worth comes from what we've talked about today: self-esteem, self-confidence, vulnerability, and self-love. Once we are able to think, feel, and believe positively about ourselves, value and feel worthy, be openness to experiences and uncertainty, and have a good appreciation for oneself, we will have the means to develop a strong sense of self-worth. Interventions to improve self-worth. Grounding exercises to bring us into the here and now. Grounding exercises can help control symptoms of anxiety and stress by turning our attention away from the thoughts or worries and refocusing on the present moment. An example of this technique would be the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. In your current environment, notice 5 things you can see. Pay attention to the details that you would normally not notice. This is just, I'm giving you an example. You can choose to do this right now in your current environment and surroundings, but you don't have to. So after 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can feel, pay attention to the textures. What does it feel like? Is it soft? Is it rough? Is the desk smooth? Is your sweater soft? Things like that. 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Again, this exercise is really important to bring us into the present moment, and it allows us to come back and turn away from the negative self-talk. Another way to improve self-worth would be through self-compassion exercises. How would you treat a friend? So we are going to do this exercise right now. So this exercise is taken from Dr. Kristen Neff. I want you to grab that pen and paper or your phone, and at the end of this exercise, there will be time to share your thoughts if you feel comfortable doing so. So I want us to think about a time when a close friend feels bad about him or herself or is really struggling in some way. How would you respond to your friend in this situation, especially when you're at your best? And now think about times when you feel bad about yourself or you are struggling. How do you typically respond to yourself in these situations? Did you notice a difference? If so, ask yourself why. What factors or fears come into play that led you to treat yourself and others so differently? And when you have time to think about it or write it down, any thoughts that come up and reflections after doing this exercise. So if everyone's thinking about it, I'm sure we all are aware. Oh, okay. I noticed that for a friend, I tend to remind them about all the good things about themselves, whereas with myself, I tend to be more judgmental. Yes. And the way in which we treat ourselves versus how we treat a friend is so different. Usually, we are mean to ourselves while offering our friend compassion, empathy, and care. It is important to offer ourselves the same compassion, empathy, and care that we would give to our friend. When a friend is struggling, I tend to wrap them up in friendship, snacks, and time. But when we are struggling, I love me a good pity party. Interesting, the difference is, yes, we often get into the narrative of, oh, woe was me. My life is hard. This is challenging. I'm a bad person, which could all minus the I'm a bad person because I don't believe anybody is. But the, oh, my life is so hard. It could be. And it may not even be a pity party. It could just be you are needing to process and get it out by sharing these statements and your thoughts. So I am going to move on to societal challenges. So, oh, one last point. I'm thinking my friend doesn't deserve to feel this way versus I do deserve to feel this way. Absolutely. And I think that's such an important point. We often feel like we deserve the worst. And we put our friends on pedestals because we care so much about them. So why is it so difficult to not turn that care inwards? The negative self-talk, the doubt, the misconceptions from what we've experienced through our families, friends, media. Yeah. So moving more into the societal challenges that we as women face. So we live in a world where, although we have come a long way, women are seen as less than equal in many areas, such as professional work environment. Research shows that around 73% of women experience bias at work. There is research indicating biases against women contributing to job advancement, so lack of job offers or promotions. And about 3 in 4 women experience bias at work, and in turn, they end up leaving their jobs because they aren't experiencing or receiving any feedback in hopes to advance in their career. Women of color, LGBTQ plus community members, and women with disabilities face more acute biases. We have the whole conception that we as women are not equal, whereas marginalized populations and groups with visible minorities unfortunately experience way more bias. And I am not able to speak on that experience, but they are experiencing more of a double-edged sword. So impacted as women and as those members. In 2021, women are given more opportunities than in previous years to advance in their careers. However, the bias that still remains can cause us as women to feel the need to prove ourselves by achieving perfection. But as we've learned today, perfect is not attainable. Perfect is an unrealistic standard because everyone's perfect is different. So we must choose to challenge gender norms, diversity not being appreciated, women not supporting each other, parenting by teaching children that we are all equal and that every person has a voice, bullying, standing up for those who put other women down. So a quote from Serena Williams, "The success of every woman should be the inspiration to another. We should raise up each other, make sure you're very courageous, be strong, be extremely kind, and above all, be humble." Today is Women's Day. How do we support each other as women in our self-worth? We support each other as women by working on our own self-worth. Working on our self-worth encompasses self-esteem, self-confidence, vulnerability, and self-love. We as women have to understand how to love ourselves above all, so we can lead with confidence, compassion, and authenticity for those who do not love themselves yet. And lastly, I will leave you with a quote by Malala Yousafzai. "I raise up my voice, not so that I can shout, but so that those without a voice can be heard. We cannot all succeed when now half of us are held back. Thank you, everyone. This is the end of my presentation, and now we will move back over to Cassandra, and she will prepare for the questionnaire and any reflections that anyone has.
Okay, so now we have a little bit of extra time to have a Q&A and to open up the chat. So if anybody wants to chat, or if you want, you can turn on your mic at this point to be able to actually share some words or some discussions or some insights. I'm going to be setting that option on for our guests as well now. Okay. So our first question is from Trish, who's asking, if we are interested in sharing this information as a resource to people, should we direct them to the I Love Me campaign? So yes, absolutely, Trish. We're going to be posting this recording on our new YouTube channel, which is called ILM Campaign. So there's going to be a really good quality recording found there. It's also being live streamed and will be saved on the I Love Me campaign's event page for today's event under the discussion tab. So Trish, they will be able to see it right away on that event page, or they can hold off and we'll get it up as soon as we can once it's downloaded and then uploaded to our YouTube. And you're welcome to get in touch with us at any time at the campaign at hello@ilmcampaign.com by email or through our social media messaging. So we just got some comments here so far, so thank you for the presentation. We're big fans of the I Love Me campaign and all the posts we reshare through our youth awareness channels. Thank you, Jackie. Where are you sharing these to? Which youth awareness channel are you talking about? Let us know. This has been really great. Thank you, ILM and Danielle. Oh, wow, CMHA. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to hear that. And Gray Bruce. So we have some more exciting talks planned for today. And while we are still opening up for questions, if anyone thinks of anything, I just want to remind you of the next two talks that we have going on today. So at 5:00 p.m. EST, we have Jane Coos, who is a second-year medical student, and she will be talking about practicing self-compassion, surviving a pandemic as a student. And that talk is going to be coming to us from Newfoundland. She's in St. John's. And then we also have Char San Pedro, who will be joining us from Toronto. She'll be doing a panel talk with myself, and we'll be talking about choosing to challenge, investing in ourselves and the world we live in. And that will be happening at 7 p.m. EST. Other announcements that we have for you today are that we're also taking donations, as we do every Women's Day, as we make fundraising efforts. And so we collect funds throughout the year, and especially on Women's Day, so that we can provide free mental health education to teen girls, young adult women, and women in a format such as this, or in a community setting or a school. So if you would like to donate today to the campaign, you can visit ilmcampaign.com and click on the PayPal donate button. And again, as I had mentioned earlier, if you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at hello@ilmcampaign.com. So we've got some more thank yous as well. And so I think we're gonna, yeah, Danielle.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, if anyone would like to connect with me, I do run a mental health Instagram. It's called Pause and Reframe. It's just a spinoff of my private practice. So if anyone wants to connect with me there, I'm also accepting new clients too, if anybody is interested in working with me.
It's wonderful. They'd be in good hands with you, Danielle.
Thanks.
So we have a question here. Danny, do you have any tips on how to start practicing self-love every day? That's from Kaya.
Yes. Thank you for your question. So the biggest tip that really helped me with my own self-love and practicing are the affirmations. Waking up, or even just throughout the day, if you're noticing that you're becoming a little bit more hard on yourself, or if you're dealing with a lot of different things in the day, it can be really challenging to not have negative self-talk. We often are like, oh, this day is going so bad. I do it myself. So I have days where I'm like, oh, I'm such a terrible therapist, but I know that's such a absolute. And it's not, there isn't really much evidence surrounding it, because I follow that up with, okay, I am a good therapist because, and I list the reasons, because when you can't find any reasons why that negative self-talk is true, it kind of debunks that thought, as well as the affirmations. So important. If you can start your day with, I'm a good person, I am worthy of love, I'm deserving, or I'm trying my best. It doesn't have to be the I'm loved, I'm worthy. It can be I'm doing the best that I can with what I've got. Change the language that fits your own language will be so important to have these practices put in place.
Okay. So anything else that you kind of want to leave the audience with, Danielle? If there's one more thing that you just want to say as a closing thought?
I would say for my own self-care, self-love, and self-worth, it's really important to just check in with yourself. We can't always be 100% positive, especially in a pandemic, especially isolating and not having our social supports. It's just really important to honor how you're feeling. If you're feeling like you're having a bad day, or if you're not doing the best that you can at work, or as a parent, or as a daughter, just honor it. Say, I'm not doing the best that I can right now. That is okay. If you can honor how you're feeling, negative or positive, I'm a little hesitant to say positive or negative, because I think everything we
Mhm,
feel is positive, so we can learn
mhm,
from our experiences. But if a negative sensation or feeling comes up, saying, yeah, I feel crappy today, but that's okay.
mhm,
Following it with, and that's okay, will honor your experience, and you're being vulnerable with yourself, because we, throughout all of our day-to-day exchanges, we have to put on this face. We rarely, when we ask someone, how are you doing today, no one really kind of digs deep and goes, I'm actually not doing well. It usually is the surface level of, oh, I'm good, how are you doing? And we don't dig deeper. So we have to be that advocate for ourselves by asking us, how do we really feel, and honoring it, not trying to
mhm,
change our experience. Once we sit in it and feel and honor it, then we can learn how to develop a strong sense of self.
mhm.
That would be
Yeah,
my
Danielle,
biggest.
you're talking a lot about authenticity towards really reflecting on how it is that you're feeling and doing internally, and taking that moment to pay attention and recognizing it. And then also being authentic in the way that you're then answering maybe that how are you question. I think something that we've learned that's really important with the pandemic is that when we're reaching out to people, to maybe ask more specific questions like, how are you coping today? How has the pandemic been for you? How is your mental health? It's about really also for us and our sense of community is finding ways to ask questions to elicit a more authentic response as well. And I think that's a big part of striving to kind of keep that connection and that social support piece through the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I want to elaborate on is as we're talking about creating change in our self worth today, going back to what Danielle said, that concept of taking a look and saying, okay, I'm having a hard time. And Danielle was saying, acknowledging and saying, but that's okay. Let's look at progress as we move forward today as an area to say, can I make it a bad moment instead of a bad day? When something hard happens, the way that we react to it or the way that we dwell on it, it's going to have a significant impact on our well being. And so, one of the things that I can encourage you all to do as you move forward with your own process of self love and self worth is to watch progress in terms of, can I kind of close that gap? Can I pay attention and cope and bring in some of these really great strategies that Danielle talked about today and bring them into my own awareness and practice so that I can not make it a bad day, but maybe it's like 3 hours of a bad moment. And then maybe a couple of weeks from now, it's 2 hours, and then I can bounce back. And it's so important, as we were saying at the beginning of this talk, in terms of why this matters. Because when we're talking about Women's Day, this is really, a push for all of us to come together as people and as humans to create change. And the only way that we can do that is if we are good within ourselves. Right. And so that's how we kind of come together and bring towards these concepts of self-love and community. I've got to take care of me and I have to be good and I deserve that. And when I can move forward in life and do good things and do the things that I dream of. And that's really our wish for all of you today who are listening. We hope that you can take even just one thing from this presentation and carry it forward with you into your day, into your week, to make either your life a little bit better or somebody else's life a little bit better. And so we leave you today with those closing thoughts, and we want you all to move forward in love for yourself and love for other people. And in everything that you do, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. So thank you very much for being here with us today. And we will, hopefully see you later today. So we've got some more speaker series, as I was mentioning, planned. Our next one is coming up at 5 p.m. EST with Jane. And so we'll hope to see you for the rest of the day, and happy International Women's Day. And thank you so much, Danielle, for joining us and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you, Cassandra. And honestly, thank you so much for putting on such an amazing event for what the reality is. And we are able to connect this way and empower each other as women. So thank you for putting this all together. It means a lot.
All right, take care, everybody. That's it for us.